Hello, everyone. Holodecks. They're really cool, right? I mean, obviously they are. You can walk in and be like, hey, computer, uh, uh, I don't know, Star Wars Episode 4, and it'll put you in the movie, presumably? Or will it? Because I've been thinking about this in the middle of other real life issues that has meant that I've not really been able to make a full video for like a week. But I've been kind of pondering this after watching the latest episodes of Picard. What exactly kind of programs a holodeck would be most useful for? What you could do with it that would make the best use out of it, let's say. And yeah, basically this is going to be a sort of short, probably crap video talking about that. So, what kind of programs would be interesting to watch in a holodeck? Well, aside from like documentaries, which watching the rise and fall of Rome in a holodeck would be a lot of time, but also probably really, really cool, as you could see its development and you could see characters come in and famous events recreated. D-Day would be horrifying. But aside from that, you might think, well, obviously movies would translate well. Could you imagine The Bourne Identity or Hunger Games or Star Trek, obviously? Any of those big movies in a holodeck. That would be really, really cool. You could walk around a 3D environment and see the characters from different angles and really get a sense of the world. But honestly, I think I would throw up in that kind of presentation because you would have out-of-body experiences when there's scene changes to different areas and different events. It would be very jarring, and if people start moving quickly, you're suddenly having this out-of-body experience up in the air. I just don't really think you would get much out of that. On the other hand, if that movie was presented as a sort of you decide. Anybody remember those books, the sort of you decide adventures where you would read a page and then you'd have a choice and it would be, do you want to stab this guy and steal his wallet? Turn to page 15. You go to jail. Do you want to help him get where he's going? Turn to page 18. He thanks you and gives you all the money in his wallet. Those kind of books. That might translate well as a way of consuming media if you're sort of playing through as the characters to an extent. Obviously, sort of first-person video games would translate very, very well. Metroid Prime or the Halo franchise or anything like that would translate very, very well, I think, to a holographic format. It might be a little bit too violent for the 24th century, but those sort of games where you're actively engaged as a character in the world, first person, what you see is the world, would translate well. And would be a lot of fun, I think, as well. And you do sort of see those sorts of things in Star Trek, to an extent. On the other hand, the games that I don't think would translate very well would be like 2D platformers or even simpler puzzle games. I don't think those would be particularly well. I mean, yeah, the idea of playing as Mario would be really, really fun until you realize that there's only one direction you can go and then variations on that. But I don't think those are necessarily the most popular genres, if you will, of a holodeck in terms of what you would play, and I will get into that. So I think that the writers of The Next Generation actually put quite a lot of thought into this, or it's a weird coincidence, but I think Dixon Hill is probably the perfect sort of holograph genre, if you will. Because what you see in that world is that it's basically an open world RPG where you are given a character that you play and then you interact with characters, but there's probably very little in the way of proper plot, where there's probably a lot of variables that are taken into account. your character, you open up your favorite game, you get in, and talk to them and interact and all that stuff. And obviously AI is probably very, very prevalent in these kind of games where they're able to sort of think on the fly, where you have basically infinite options on what you can do, and those characters will respond in turn within certain parameters. So something like Dixon Hills, you're at your desk, Captain Picard is, some broad walks in and says, hey, I think my husband is cheating on me, can you investigate? Here's, I don't know, when's this set, the 50s? Here's 50 cents, that's like a month's worth of money, investigate. And then he goes out and wanders around and looks at places, and the entire time, he's interacting with the world. There's artificial intelligence involved at every level, and really he's making the story more than the story is being told. So it's not so much a game developer or writer makes a game with a specific story, but they create the bare bones around which the player can create their own narrative almost. And I think if that makes any sense, that might be a wild tangent. Probably is, but it makes sense in my head. This is not a scripted video, so if it was scripted, I may have realized this. I can't explain this. But hopefully I've given you that idea that basically the best kind of games in a holodeck scenario, in my opinion, would be games that you really decide what happens, where you walk into a world with story elements disconnected from one another, and it's your job to connect them and have them make sense in whatever order you decide and whatever magnitude you decide. Going back to Metroid Prime, you show up on a space station as, is it Samus or Seamus? I think it's Samus, but because I don't think she's Irish. You go on and you find everybody that you're supposed to talk to dead, and then you kind of go through the story, or through the station, and investigate and search. That kind of linear story would make sense in a holodeck, but I think something like Dixon Hill, where apparently the entire world reacts very directly to what you do, and it's a very open world, might be a better game in terms of long-term engagement. We know the Dixon Hill series does have chapters. I see them as being much more vague rather than a specific story element that you go through, or specific levels, or even a specific sort of episodic format, that it's just a scenario that you're given that you then work around and try to uncover clues that have been left there, but it's very much up to you to connect the pieces, if it is, and there's probably very little guidance that you get. I mean, again, might make very, very, very little sense, but it also might make some sense. So, what do you think of this theory? Has it made any sense at all? Does it make no sense? Honestly, I'm erring on it makes absolutely no sense, but, what are you gonna do? And, definitely let me know what kind of stories you think would make a lot of sense in a holodeck setting. I'm probably going to make a short around the time that this video goes out, which will be tomorrow for me right now, but, 11 o'clock Central American time, or Central United States time, or whatever it is, for you guys. Probably just saying, hey, what's a series that you would like to see translated to the holodeck? So look out for that. Obviously, it'll probably be out before this. And, feel free to drop a line about what you think. Also, feel free to drop a comment here talking about that. As always, as this unhinged tirade has completed, thank you for watching. Thank you very, very much to my supporters on Patreon. They really help this channel in subtle ways. I mean, obviously this is my living, so support me through Patreon. But a couple of bucks here, a couple of bucks there means that I can get different things for the channel. I can get, pen tips from my Apple Pencil to draw? if I want to. Little things like that go a long way, so really thanks to Patreon supporters. There's a link below if you want to join them. You can. And I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it, I guess, for this video. I mean, like it, dislike it, comment, don't comment. It's the end of the video. Nobody's paying attention to this. This whole video has been an unhinged disaster. I'm gonna go rethink my decisions.